What is up, everybody? Clint Lamb with Cover Crimson here to talk about Alabama's expected, still not completed, we're going a little bit early, but expected victory over Eastern Illinois. A lot to talk about. I understand that the opponent kind of worked out the exact way we thought it was going to, but there are some conversations that need to be had regarding Alabama. And, obviously you got the Iron Bowl now, potentially the college football playoff, multiple players, multiple starters end up missing this game. So, while there are going to be a lot good to talk about from this game, there's also some concerns, but I want to go over some of that with you guys. I think it's going to be make for a pretty interesting conversation today, but we'll be kind of reacting a little bit live if there's anything massive that happens with these last, I think it's under 5 minutes now, but let's see. We'll start with the injuries and the fact that you have lost Josh Cuevas. He did not play today. Don't think he's expected to play next week. Don't know anything really definitively beyond that, but obviously it's probably I guess it will probably depend. But that's rough because not only is he a nice, reliable safety blanket, good hands, the fact that he can do the yards after the catch, be creative, that has been a huge point for the offense and a huge plus for Ty Simpson. So not having him available, that's probably not going to be great. Now, Jeremy Bernard missed today. Parker Brailsford missed today. They're both expected to be back for the Iron Bowl next week. But at the same time, will they be 100%? Once again, that remains to be seen. If you want to get in on the action and you want to have, you make a comment, we'll try to get to as many of the comments as we possibly can. The easiest way to guarantee that your comment is going to be read or addressed is to do the super chat. But, should be for, despite the fact that this was Eastern Illinois, I still think this is going to be a pretty interesting conversation. And, at this point, with the kicking game and the way that it is looking right now, Connor Talty goes out there. It's a short kick, chip shot, misses it. And I think, obviously, that's going to create some boos from fans based off of how he acted last week after the missed field goal, which was really a blocked field goal, but it was a high snap from the snapper. It's how he reacted was going to get boos. What I didn't like about it, though, was the next time he came out there after missing the kick for an extra point, the fans booed him again. And a lot of people were justifying that on Twitter, responding to a tweet because I said I didn't like that. The reason that I didn't like that was this. The fact that he missed an easy chip shot field goal, the fact that he has struggled all season, and then the fact that the very next attempt, whether it be an extra point or a field goal, it was Connor Talty again. They didn't make a switch. That told me they don't have anybody else on the roster right now that they trust more than Connor Talty. And I'm not saying that they have just this unwavering faith in Talty, but it kind of told me, if there was ever a time to make a change, it was after that missed kick. It really was. And so when Talty went back out there, I'm like, okay, we probably need to I understand the frustrations and wanting to criticize him and boo him, after he misses the kick. And he kind of seemed to be riling it or agging it on a little bit. Would have to go back and watch it again. But this is a guy that Alabama is going to need. I don't know if it's going to be against Auburn. I don't know if it's going to be in the SEC championship should Alabama make it. I don't know if it's going to be the college football playoff, but there are going to be some moments in some of these games, not necessarily that the entire game is going to come down to a kick, but they're going to need to make some field goals. I'm telling you right now, just expecting to be able to go for it on fourth down every time and expecting that to be an effective way of doing things. I just don't think that's the way. I don't think that's the right approach. So I'm thinking to myself, and a lot of times when I tweet, these are thoughts that are popping into my head. And, after I criticized him on Twitter, I said, I don't like that people booed him when he went back out there for the extra point, and they're going to need him. Just based off of the fact that it seems to be Connor Talty. They're not making a switch or anything like that. And then a lot of people were responding and saying that, we had some back and forth. It's fine. How concerned on a level of 1 to 10, how concerned are you for the field goal kicking? Because right now I would probably put it at about an 8 for me. I'm not ready to go 9 or 10 necessarily, but it's a massive problem. Might even, I don't know, I might go 9. I mean, it's pretty bad right now. But get in the comments, let me know, because I'm just curious. But and it's not just for the field goal specifically, like the field goal team. It's like, how much are you concerned about it impacting the rest of Alabama's season? That's what I need to know, because some people, like, they're just like, oh well, they're good offensively, they're good defensively, whatever. Like they ignore the importance of special teams, and I don't think that. I think this is a pretty big deal. Let's get some of these comments. Daniel Lawler, what's up, brother? Good to hear from you, man. I hope you're doing well. Appreciate you. We did get a super chat. Appreciate the $5 super chat. Cody Stevens. He said, I've enjoyed watching the second half more than the first half. Yeah, I mean, right now I'm kind of starting to let people get in. The game's not even over yet, so there will be more and more people pour in. I don't want to do a whole lot as far as diving into everything just yet, so we'll be dabbling a little bit. But I will say, watching the second half, I think watching Austin Mack, I thought he did some good things. Keelan Russell certainly has shown some promise. The release and the fact that he can get it out so quickly, just a special talent, man. And not saying that he did anything like super crazy today, but just the way the ball snaps off that hand. I mean, you can tell he's got a cannon. And I think that his ability to process information and operate this offense, I think he's going to end up being a really, really good player for Alabama in due time. You start talking about some of the depth guys or other guys that they played, and we'll go ahead and be pulling up the numbers here. So, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that the College Football Playoff Committee criticized Alabama's run game. And so far, the very next Saturday, the very next time that they got on the field, 263 yards right now and 7 rushing touchdowns. Wouldn't be shocked at all if there's another touchdown. The 2-minute warning just happened. They're up 49-0. They're on the 7-yard line maybe. Wouldn't be shocked at all if you saw them put up an 8th rushing touchdown. But here's the thing, though. I don't think it's just making a statement to the College Football Playoff Committee. I think it's this team saying, you know what? We'll run it 50 times in this game. We will. We'll commit to it, and we'll do it like it's a practice, because, I mean, when you were watching it, it pretty much was a practice. And we're going to start getting better at running the football. We're going to do it over and over and over and see if we can start to get some things going. And the opponent that you're going against, I mean, it's not much better than, your practice squad. But this was a great opportunity to give 50 carries or close to it to your running backs and let your offensive line block, do all those things. So that's been pretty encouraging considering. But we'll also be talking about the passing game here in a little bit after the game gets over. Let's see. Yeah, only checkdowns and runs against Eastern Illinois. It was very vanilla. I'm not shocked at that. You saw QB Reese and some of those guys on the second drive of the game for the defense. I mean, I've never seen that. Imagine Nick Saban doing that. Not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that it is so different as far as their willingness to go ahead and say, we are the superior team going into this game. We knew we were going to be. We were going to handle our business like a team that was vastly superior. And we're going to go ahead and start getting some of these guys reps and doing some things and testing some things out. And, it feels very foreign to me, which is why, when I first saw QB Reese out there, I'm like, I don't like this. Then as I started thinking about it, I'm like, I don't like this because I watched 17 years of Nick Saban. And so in contrast, this is just so vastly different that it's kind of shocking. But as you start to think about it, it's like, well, I mean, they don't have to take the Nick Saban route. And what I will say is one of the kind of encouraging parts or elements of this when you start to think about it is, Nick Saban really wouldn't let himself or let the program look ahead to another opponent. I mean, they just wouldn't do it. It didn't matter if it was Citadel. If Tua is healthy enough to play, Tua is playing. That was his approach. You had guys, I mean, if this would have been Auburn in Jordan-Hare this week, would Parker Brailsford have set out? Probably. But would have Jeremy Bernard? Don't necessarily know. So it's like some of these guys probably got held out just because of the opponent. But what that also tells me is, like, some of what you saw, there was so much rotation. I mean, it's so tons of different receivers. You're seeing different running backs. You saw A.K. Deere early. You saw Daniel Hill. You saw Kevin Riley. You saw obviously Jam Miller. you're seeing different offensive lines. Like on the first drive, it was Jaden Roberts getting the start at right guard. It was Wilkin Formby getting the start at right tackle. I originally didn't like that when they announced that as those guys as the starters, simply because I wanted to see continuity off of last week. You had committed to Jaden Roberts for 2 straight games, and then out of nowhere, he disappears and doesn't see a single snap. And I'm like, okay, well, that grouping last week did look pretty good, so you can't really argue against it. Let's see some continuity, see how they continue to kind of grow and gel together. And then the very next week, I understand that Parker Brailsford was going to be out, and so you were going to have to make a change to your starting lineup relative to a season ago. But you also didn't have to make the moves with Formby and Jaden Roberts, and yet they put Jaden Roberts in there right guard. Formby goes back to tackle, and I wasn't a fan of that at first. Then I started thinking about it. I'm like, it's senior day. A lot of these seniors are starting. Jaden Roberts has earned this opportunity, so I understand. But there was rotation with the offensive line, pretty much second drive. Might have been third, but I think it was second. Wilkin Formby is back at right guard. Michael Carroll comes in at right tackle. So the entire offense was just, there were a lot of rotation, a lot of snaps. How can you expect Ty Simpson to really get into a rhythm and look sharp when all this is, happening around him pretty much from the jump? And so the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, I mean, they probably wanted to get a lot of guys some snaps. I thought it was good to get both the backup quarterbacks snaps. They hadn't in a while, but it was also like a looking ahead. They didn't reveal anything to Auburn. They put the Caden Proctor stuff back on tape where they threw him a quick pass to the perimeter. That's going to make Auburn have to, it's going to remind them you're going to have to prepare for this. And so, I mean, to an extent, I like that they ended up handling some of these things the way that they did based off of what's coming up next week. And I don't necessarily think that what you saw today from like a Ty Simpson and the offense was necessarily reflective of what you're going to see next week. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they look a lot more sharp next week compared to this week. But some of the issues that Ty Simpson has had in recent weeks continue to be a problem. Like you saw thrown over the middle of the field. He's just not seeing the middle of the field very well. And that had been such a strength for him for a majority of the season. And then as of late, he seemed to have started to struggle in that area. I didn't really like that too much, but it is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and send out this tweet, letting everybody know that we're here and we're live. Appreciate y'all being here. And I already see all the comments. We're going to be getting to those. Let's see. So KD Bama, he says AK scores again. Yes, it is now up to 269 yards rushing and 8 rushing touchdowns. I don't know. I'm not listening to the TV broadcast. I wonder what they're saying. Have they said anything about records being broken? Because I know that they had said at 7, it had been, since forever, since they had done something like that. So I'm sure it's got to be getting close to some sort of record. I think that, once again, for the people who weren't here, maybe if you're listening to this live and didn't start from the beginning, I think there's 2 reasons for that. One, in some ways, I think it's making a statement to the college football playoff. But more importantly, I think it's trying to get better running the football. Like, guys, we've got to get this run game going. It's got to be more complimentary. They made strides against Oklahoma. I thought they did some things pretty well. But if they want a chance at winning a national championship, if they even get in the college football playoff, which is still somewhat up in the air, they've got to be able to run the football more effectively and more consistently. Doesn't have to be a great rushing offense. Doesn't have to be elite, but you got to get more out of it than what you have been getting. So this was a great opportunity to practice some of these things. That's essentially what you're doing. You're just getting reps and trying to get guys more comfortable, and you're looking at a lot of different guys. AK Deer ended up with 9 carries or so far. Yeah, I guess it's going to finish at 9. And, that was the second most on the team. So ahead of Kevin Riley, who got the third most with 8. Jam Miller got the most with 11. Didn't see a whole lot of Daniel Hill. Now, he did get, I think, banged up a little bit. I don't know if he ever came back in after that. But we'll be talking more. We'll be talking more about the running backs here in just a minute. Let's start to get some of these comments. Jonesy, appreciate the $4.99 super chat, brother. Deer is dynamic. A big part of the vintage Bama run game was having a dynamic player running the football. I don't disagree with that at all. When Alabama has been a dynamic rushing offense. They have had a dynamic player in the backfield. It is wild to me, wild that you have a top 100 recruit in Jam Miller, 4-star, very respected player, I think in the 150-ish range in Daniel Hill. You got A.K. Deere, a former top 100 recruit. You got Richard Young, a former top 100 recruit. Like, you've got all this talent in your backfield. Kevin Riley, another former top 100 recruit, and you can't find what you're looking for out of your running backs. Like, and here's the thing, a huge chunk of these guys were Saban players. So you can't really say, well, DeBoer and company, they're not good at player evaluation, because I think Deere, as Jonesy is talking about, I mean, he's probably the most dynamic player they have. He's probably just not quite ready to assume a massive role. Maybe that changes against Auburn, but I don't know. I guess it depends on the health status of Daniel Hill, assuming that he's going to be available. I just don't know. But it's like, how are you not getting out of this position what you were expecting to get? It is one of the big mysteries of this season. I don't know really what to say about it. It's been frustrating because a lot of it is the offensive line. You can't take things off of them. Their inability to consistently sustain blocks this year has been a problem. But let's not act like that it also falls on the running backs. It's the tight ends, and they're blocking out on the edges and, on the perimeter. It's wide receiver. They're blocking on the perimeter. It's running backs not doing what they need to do as far as vision, pressing holes when they're available. It's been, and the ability to create as far as breaking tackles, whether it be first or second level. You just haven't seen nearly enough of that kind of stuff so far from Alabama this year. So yeah, that's a concern. Deere is going to be a massive part of Alabama's backfield. I just don't necessarily know, or even right now probably think that he's going to be the guy in 2025. We'll have to wait and see. And if I'm wrong on that, fully willing to admit it. But, I thought he showed some good things today, but unless Daniel Hill is banged up and there's yet another injury and you're trying to find solutions, I don't know necessarily that you'll see a whole lot from him. Chili, appreciate you, man. Hope you're doing well, brother. Clint and I were Sigma Nu brothers at BSC. Yes, we were. Hope you and everybody are doing well. It has been quite a while. Let's see. What is going on with Ty, man? I think he's been playing not great football for a little while now. It's not bad football. Some of it's bad, but I still think he's doing some good things. Now today, I think it was so vanilla that, and here's the problem. This is why it's going to be viewed through this lens of, man, what is going on with Ty? This was Eastern Illinois. The last time there was this type of opponent, which is even worse than Louisiana Monroe, Ty Simpson goes 17 of 17. He's slicing and dicing, throwing touchdown passes, getting his confidence up, got tons of swagger. And I said all week, I'd hoped that this was an opportunity for him to do that. So the fact that not only did he not do that, but you also saw him throw 2 interceptions, which one of them doesn't even count. It's right there at the end of the half. It's trying to take a shot and get a touchdown. That doesn't count. Didn't matter. The other one wasn't great. Granted, I think he thought he could layer that throw. I think the defensive back got a little bit higher than he was expecting him to be able to get. And so he wasn't able to get it over that first layer of defender, and it was intercepted. It was a good play by the defensive back, but still probably, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't have made that throw. I need to go back and watch it a little closer, but he is not playing the caliber of football that he did earlier this year. I'm not going to assume that caliber of football is going to return based off of what I've seen in recent weeks. Like, to sit there and say, despite the fact that he didn't do a whole lot against Eastern Illinois, I'm fully confident the next week against Auburn, he's going to be able to get things back on track. He might. I wouldn't put that past him, but I'm not going to make that assumption. So he is not playing. I think in his last 6 quarters of football, he's had 4 turnovers. That's an average of 2.7 turnovers per game over the course of 4 quarters. I did say earlier this year on Twitter, when someone was trying to compare Jalen Milroe's turnover problem last year to Ty Simpson's, I was like, hold up now. Milroe had like a 3-game stretch where he had 9 turnovers in those 3 games. If Ty Simpson goes 3 straight games and has 3 turnovers in each of those and has 9 over the course of a 3-game stretch, people are going to talk about it the same way they talked about it with Milroe. What I'm here to say is that it's not a 3-game stretch. It's not 9 total turnovers, but his last 6 quarters of football, especially from a turnover perspective, 2.7. That was 3 per game for Milroe. So you at least got to acknowledge that is I'm still not saying that he's as big of a problem with the turnovers as Milroe, but you have to start saying that he's not playing the caliber of football he did earlier this season, and he hadn't for a while. Doesn't mean he's not still putting NFL caliber stuff on tape. He's still doing some first round things. This will tell you everything you need to know. Despite the fact that he has struggled, and we've all watched him struggle, where's he fallen in the mock drafts? Is he completely fallen off of that? Or are they still talking about him being potentially the number 1 pick? Number 3, I think, to the Cleveland Browns, number 5. A lot of places still have him going in the top 10. It's because of what he's doing, his ability to process. The NFL is so desperate for players who can do that type of thing, because it has been turned, the developmental side of it for the quarterbacks has just not been there. So if you have a player that's able to do that already, that's going to make that player very coveted. He is still doing some things that you don't want to see him do, though. So not going to sit here and say that he's without fault. All right, let's see. Let's continue on. Okay, let's see. Those mock drafters are some damn fools. They don't know who will be good in the league or not. I won't tell you. I don't. I mean, some of those guys miss. If you know the right ones to follow, the right. You've got good evaluators, because there are some really, really good ones. And it's strange because, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name. He was head of Nagy Senior Bowl. He was ahead or over the Senior Bowl. I don't think it's coincidence that they all of a sudden hire him at Oklahoma, and Oklahoma really starts to improve from a depth and talent standpoint. Not necessarily, he's not like, I'm saying that having that type of guy in the building is beneficial. Also, forgetting his name, he was at 24/7 Sports. It'll come to me in a minute. I'm terrible with names, but he was at Vanderbilt, and they were highlighting him a lot last year. But he was a guy that was in the media, kind of like what I'm doing, and talking about a lot of prospects and evaluating them. And Vandy hires him, and all of a sudden Vandy starts getting really good, and their talent starts to elevate. They're seeing some guys that they probably shouldn't be seeing from like a diamonds in the rough, and they're bringing them in, and they're kind of putting them in a position to be successful. I don't think it's a coincidence that those two programs are doing extremely well, putting this type of person in a role to help grow a roster or build a roster in today's college football. So not saying that all these mock drafters, I mean, there's 5,000 of them, but if you know the right ones, some of these guys are really good at what they do. And I would say that NFL teams would greatly benefit from having some of these guys in their building. I'll go ahead and tell you that. But, I do think that people right now really value what Ty Simpson brings to the table, because he is a good processor. He has solutions, but I think that right now he's showing the ability to do that. But when he's getting against really good defenses, they're able to kind of change the picture. And what Oklahoma, especially what they were doing, that threw Ty for a loop. And it's just not something that really anybody had done to him throughout the course of the season. And, I think he'll get better with that as time moves on. But anyways, let's see. What we got? Barton Simmons. Yes, I'm glad you brought up. Yeah, and I think he's doing a great job. I mean, look at Vanderbilt. Jared Curtis potentially flipping him from Georgia. That does not happen in a pre-NIL era. That is wild, and it hadn't happened yet. But that would be the biggest. I mean, since Travis Hunter went to Jackson State, I mean, that would be the biggest recruiting surprise since then. I don't know if anything will ever top that, because, I mean, Travis Hunter, who has turned into a top 5 NFL draft pick, number 2 overall pick, the fact that he ended up starting his career at Jackson State when he could have pretty much went anywhere, still pretty wild. But all right, let's get back to some of these comments. Jonesy, Ty's struggles are directly linked to defenses having a ton of film on the offense and the offense's inability to stretch the field vertically. There just isn't a ton of open space anymore. I agree 95%. I think that you pretty much hit the nail on the head. The fact that you don't have a vertical passing game, the fact that you don't have any sort of consistent run game, they're so limited in what they do that when you put these things on tape, but it's only just like a couple of things that you're doing at an elite level, and you have nothing to complement that, then defenses are going to say, okay, we're going to do some things schematically to really try to limit those things. And it's the same thing as like, okay, if you got a dual threat quarterback, make him beat you from the pocket. That's the whole goal, right? In a lot of those games, make him stay in the pocket, make him deliver throws, take away his biggest strength. And if you've got a quarterback that can't do that, he crumbles in those situations, you win the football game a lot. It's not just, this is not just a tie situation. It's Alabama's offense as a whole. But what defenses right now are saying is we're not going to give you a lot of what you had as far as the middle of the field, as far as, they understand that the play action, Alabama will stay committed to the run game. The problem is where the run game is most effective is when the defense starts having to commit more bodies to the run game. So like the play action and stuff, the goal is commit to the run game, have some success. They respect your run game. They commit some bodies to it. And then off of play action and things like that, a lot of the rest of your offense is opened up. Well, it doesn't matter if they can stop your run game, even if you're trying to stay committed to it with limited numbers, then the other things aren't going to be as effective. And I just think right now, the way that it regressed over the course of this season, it hurt the passing game as a whole. And there hasn't been, as Jonesy says, there hadn't been a vertical passing game to really strain opposing defenses and make them do a lot to cover you over the top and really fear you getting the explosives on them. The fact that you really didn't have any explosives today, I mean, you scored 56 points, you covered the spread, but the fact that you didn't, I mean, there was no like massive explosives, right? I mean, none that I can remember. Very consistently, got chunk gains as far as on the ground, got chunk gains as far as, throwing the football. And I say chunk is in, 10, 15 yards and ran the football fairly consistently. But once again, just almost zero explosives right now. It's kind of baffling. This is our Philippines. I'm not sure if it is the receivers, the protection, or time self. I might have missed another comment that you put out there. Let's see. Well, what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit more about the actual numbers. So you saw a ton of Alabama running the football. You saw a lot of different backs, and all of them were successful. I mean, pretty much, 5.6 yards per carry, 5 yards per carry, 4.5, 4.6 for Dre Washington. Richard Young averaged 4 yards a carry. Daniel Hill only got 2 carries for 14 yards, but he averaged 7 yards a carry. He had 8 rushing touchdowns. Like, all this is great. This was kind of, it wasn't surprising. I more so thought that this would be a get-right game for Ty. But with the way this staff is, where you've seen it against way better opponents than Eastern Illinois, I think after in hindsight, this all makes sense. It's something I didn't think about at the time. But after the after the Florida State game back in week 1, that was such an ugly performance and had people so concerned that there was a huge emphasis on getting right and getting confidence up and like helping Ty out. He was a first game starter. He was up and down. The coaching staff, I don't think, was too pleased with how he played against Florida State. And so the goals for ULM and even for Wisconsin the week after, it was different than this. I more so thought, hey, treat this the same way. You're coming off a loss. Ty's kind of struggling a little bit. The offense is really struggling. Use this as a get-right game. I think their goals were, we need to run the football better, so let's run the football a ton. Let's just keep doing it and get some practice reps at it. I think it was, not to reveal a whole lot. Like, this isn't a concern about the team as much as probably the Florida State loss was. They lost to a playoff caliber opponent, very good football team, very good defense, should I say, against Oklahoma. And it was kind of in some ways a fluky performance where you lose the turnover battle 3-0. So they're not, while they're concerned about the offense, they're still approaching things probably the same way that they were before that loss, which is, we know we got some deficiencies. We know we need to get them fixed. Let's keep our head down. Let's continue to go to work on these things. So it wasn't a confidence building type of approach. And they didn't want to put a whole lot on tape for the SEC championship, for Auburn next week, for the college football playoff, any of those potential situations. They did what they have done in the past, which is, we're going to win this football game. And they have assumed that in some situations where they shouldn't have assumed that, and that has gotten them beat, in my opinion. But against this type of opponent, you didn't have to worry about that. Didn't matter if you didn't take them seriously. You were going to win this game. You just hoped that it didn't look overly ugly, and it didn't. There were some bad moments, but different approach, totally different approach than it was earlier this season. We'll be talking more about that because I do think that's an important distinction to make. I wanted to see it look a little differently, but you can clearly see that the goals were not what we all wanted. They had things in mind, and I think based off of that, they executed it. Let's see. Andrew Warren, appreciate the $9.99 super chat. I loved Ty, but watching Mac run the offense, show me the offense as it is intended to be run. Quick, ball out, take what's there. Ty seems to be forcing explosives. You watched Austin Mack against ULM, and you watched him against Eastern Illinois. Do not make any sort of sweeping assumptions based off of that. I understand what you're saying, and I understand that there's a reason to be excited about Mack, and there's a reason to be excited about Keelan Russell. But do not take what Ty Simpson just went through as far as the grind week in and week out against elite defenses, including Oklahoma last week, and say, oh, I think Austin Mack looks more comfortable and it just looks, I mean, it might look right to you, but Ty, you understand that I think that there has been an emphasis on creating more explosives, whether that be in the vertical passing game, whether that be in the run game. It's one reason that I suggested, which I think I actually ended up being wrong on this. The reason that they played Ryan Williams last year as a punt return or last game as a punt returner is because they were looking to compensate for the lack of explosives in some other way. Kalen DeBoer explained why they did that. It made sense in my head, so I don't think that that's what they were doing. But my point is, this offense has been hunting for explosives. They're trying to find them in any way possible. In this game, they're not necessarily looking for explosives. They're not telling Austin Mack to go out there, and they're not calling plays and stuff trying to create a bunch of explosives. They had specific things they wanted to work on. They wanted to kind of hide as much as they possibly could ahead of next week. Very different goal. Some of that is Ty's inability to execute some of these things, but also understand the game plan was vastly different in this one compared to some of the others. So keep that in mind. Let's see. So we got people arguing in the chat. Some Auburn fans already in here. It's Auburn hate week, guys. It is. And I could be wrong. Maybe it's not an Auburn fan, but I thought I saw somebody say that. I'm glad that it's here. I can't stand Cupcake Week. I hate it with a passion. It is why I think the College Football Playoff Committee should value wins, value scheduling tough opponents, and value, just being, if you're willing. Here's the thing. A lot of people, my argument to this is, okay, hey, go schedule a tough opponent, but don't just schedule them, beat them. Yeah, that's the goal. You want to win those football games. But you also don't want to make a ton of downside for scheduling a tough opponent and then losing, because someone's got to lose. So if you put two teams in there who are really good, one team's going to win, one team's going to lose. Don't punish the team overly for losing that game. That's kind of my point when I say that. I understand the goal is to win, but also take into account when you're having to play a bunch of tough teams, that needs to be a part of this conversation too. Because if all you're doing is saying, hey, your record needs to look the absolute best that it possibly can. We don't care who you play. We're just going to go look at your record and see what that is. That's our starting point. And then from there, we might start comparing some of the other things. I don't like that because I think you're encouraging getting more weekends like this. Like this game, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, the crowd wasn't into it unless you're Connor Talty, and then they were very passionate. But the people at home, they weren't. I mean, I watched a practice today. That's what I did. I didn't watch a football game. I watched a practice, and I watched Alabama work on some things like they would against their scout team. I hate this, and I hate that we're in November, late November, only one regular season game after this, and we're having to play an opponent or watching Alabama play an opponent like this, and it's not just them. The reason for that, I understand the logic. It's towards the end of the season. The SEC schedule is a grind compared to a lot of other schedules. What I hate is that we're encouraging to do more of this. I don't like that whatsoever. Willie J. Smith, appreciate you. Roll damn Tide. We could beat Auburn with our second string quarterback. I like Austin Mack. I like Keelan Russell. I think they're both really going to be really good players. But, I don't know. Going to Jordan-Hare Stadium, it it's going to be a good game. I have no doubt. But I also think part of me, this is going to sound strange, but part of me is more encouraged about Alabama playing Auburn next week as a result of some of the problems that we saw today, if that makes any sense. It just kind of told me they were looking ahead. So we've known that in the past, like in some of these games in Jordan-Hare Stadium when Hugh Freeze was obviously looking ahead to Alabama. They looked terrible the week before, and then all of a sudden they're throwing the kitchen sink at Alabama. Like you saw some of these things coming. It kind of feels like it's reversed in a lot of ways. They understand the importance of the Auburn game, and they were willing to look ahead past Eastern Illinois some to make that happen. So that I know that's weird to say, but I actually kind of feel more encouraged about next week based off of what I saw today. Let's see, GWB 29. Clint wear and tear have affected Ty a half off, and being able to process the game from the sidelines will be good. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think giving him, some time. Now, granted, he's had bye weeks and things like that. But I mean, I can sit here and say, a bye week will help him. Or, playing in Eastern Illinois, it's a confidence building opportunity for him. Like, I haven't seen it yet. So to assume just getting a half off is going to drastically change anything, I'm not going to go that far, but I do think that you make a good point, and that is possible. Samuel Wilkinson, Roll Tide. Hey, Clint, do you know if we offer kicker James Bryant from Hoover, he could be a good one to get in? I don't know. The last time I checked, they had not offered him. I don't know if anything's changed on that front. I'll certainly find out, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. I will find that out specifically for you, Samuel, and we'll discuss it tomorrow on the live show. But I'll just go ahead and tell you, I hate criticizing players. I'm willing to do it. Don't get me wrong. But I understand, I'm going to be in the minority here, and I know that. It's tough to watch Connor Talty. He wants to make the kicks. Now, some people don't like his attitude, and I totally get that, and actually, in a lot of ways, I agree with it. But it's just, man, you've got to think there's so much pressure on these kids, and to watch them get out there and just fall apart mentally, it's tough to watch. But it's like I said on Twitter, it's just not working. Now, I don't think they have a better option right now. I think if they had a better option, you would have already seen them. So that just tells me, you got to do whatever you can to try to get his mind, or his season back on track as much as you possibly can, which is why I think, fans and stuff, the booing and everything, I understand it. Don't get me wrong. But if helping Alabama is the number one priority, booing Connor Talty on the extra point attempt, I think after the missed field goal, there's going to be some of that. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it. It's when he came back out there. I also understand why they did that, but just that doesn't help Alabama. Now, if you're saying I don't care if it hurt Alabama, at this point, I'm mad at him. He's not playing well. He hadn't been playing well. So I'll put myself first to make myself feel better by booing him. Whether it hurts or helps Alabama, I don't care. That's your approach. I can't do anything about that. But just know you are not helping by booing. And everybody, I think, knows that. But that's, that's to each, I guess. It's bad, though. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it and say it's fun. It's a massive concern. It is the fact that you have zero confidence that you're going to be able to consistently knock down kicks when you've got the types of games that Alabama could have coming up. That's not good, especially when your offense, it's very up and down right now. You really don't know what you're going to get from it. It's not a good combination. Let's see. Be clear. Brandon, appreciate you, brother, for the $4.99 super chat. Great take on their approach today, Clint. Grubb on the field for the self-assessment is a sign of that. Kicking game is the real issue. Great point on Grubb. I almost forgot about that. He was on the field. He's normally up in the booth, and I don't know if that was them trying that out for a moving forward situation or just was that specific for this game. But that point's exactly what we're talking about. This staff is willing to be up front. Nick Saban didn't want his players, his staff, the fans. He never wanted anybody to buy into this idea that you were going to beat an opponent before you step in the field, this assumption that you were going to beat them before you stepped on the field. He hated that. He called it rat poison, and he fought against it each and every day of his entire career. That is, in a lot of ways, that's what made Nick Saban special, in my opinion, and why he went so long without losing to unranked opponents, because he took everybody seriously and he had that team ready to rock and roll. Didn't matter who it was. Not saying they didn't have some up and down moments, if it was a game, Western Kentucky or somebody like that, they come out flat, really piss them off or whatever. But you always saw them bringing it from a score standpoint. You would look at the scoreboard at the end of the game and they handle business 98% of the time. And it was like 99.9% of the time against unranked opponents. But this staff does not approach it that way. And they told you straight up that when at the second I saw QB Reese on the second drive, told me everything I needed to know. And it is, I think QB Reese once again played good football today. I'm glad that they got him reps, but you can't tell me, I don't care if even, if you can say, oh, Deontay Lawson's a little banged up. Okay, you would have saw Justin Jefferson and Nikai Hill-Green for at least the first 3, 4, 5 drives. Even if that was the case, like it screamed, we know that we've got this in the bag. Right now, we're trying to get reps. We're trying to tweak some things, and we're trying not to reveal too much. I think people at least need to take that in consideration because, they ended up being right. They won 56-0, and they didn't have to do a whole lot. Let's see. Yeah, I probably need to get the USC Oregon game on. That's a pretty big one. Let's see. So the kicker for USC just taught you the kick. Obviously, that means they missed it. That's not good. I need to get that game on. I will here in just a second. I also want to point out special teams as a whole. It's not just Talty. The long snapper, your long snapper got benched. Your field goal kicker, if you had anything with a pulse behind him that you could trust, more than likely he would get benched. Blake Dowd has been okay at times. He's also been very inconsistent. You had the special teams turnover last week against Oklahoma. You had Blatzier Brooks miss a tackle and give up an explosive in the return game on punt return for Oklahoma. That led to points. Special teams has not been good. And it's pretty much, tell me a spot that has been really good and really consistent as far as special teams. I can't think of really any. So that's concerning. So Oregon's up 28-14. That's not great. That's also par for the course. Let's see. Is there anything else that we want to talk about? We've been going, but I definitely think there's some things that we missed. Definitely don't want to miss it. No, anything that we did, some of this stuff I'll just need to get back and look at. So, I did think it was interesting that Edric Hill got the start for James Smith at the 3 tech next to Tim Keenan. Tim Keenan was an absolute monster, by the way, especially early. Had a couple of early sacks. That was great to see. But it was interesting because it's not like James Smith is he's the older player. It's possible. I don't think it's likely at this point, but it's possible that James Smith leaves for the NFL. And so they were starting nothing but seniors and upperclassmen in this game. And yet you saw Edric Hill getting the start at the 3 tech, next to Tim Keenan. I thought that was interesting. Don't know if that means anything. Maybe James Smith's a little banged up. But I think Damani Jackson got the start for Dijon Lee. The interception by Dijon, fantastic. Now, granted, the receiver pretty much gave it to him, but the fact that he was able to trap it on the player and then get it, that was pretty awesome. With Josh Cuevas out today, you saw Caleb Edwards and you saw Jay Lindsey both get the start. I thought they did fine. Caleb Edwards, I think he did pretty well. I don't think it's a coincidence. Now just go with me. The player who led the entire team in targets, now they spread it out a lot because you played a ton of different players. You had 3 different quarterbacks. So it wasn't by much. There was a bunch of players who got 3 targets, but the only player who got 4 targets in this football game was Marshall Pritchett. Now, Marshall Pritchett, if you were to say, okay, who brings the receiving element to the extent that Josh Cuevas does on this roster, I would say nobody. But as far as who's more of that move type of tight end, not really the inline guy, they will play Jay Lindsey in that role. But when you talk about the pass catching element, I think Marshall Pritchett more than anybody. So the reason that I say that is I don't necessarily think that it's a coincidence. Maybe it is, but I think it's odd timing that Josh Cuevas definitely missed today's game. He might miss next week's game against Auburn. In fact, I'm pretty sure he is going to miss next week's game against Auburn. Might be out beyond that, but they're getting what I would view as the only player that can really replicate that, to not to that extent, but like bring that receiving element as or more of that move athletic piece at tight end than Marshall Pritchett. And he ends up that they feature him a lot today. Like they're trying to get him reps, get him involved, get the football in his hands, see what he does with it. Maybe they're evaluating him. Can he be a potential guy that we rely on a little bit more down the stretch? I thought that was pretty interesting. Let's see. So, yeah, despite the fact that Jaden Roberts got the start at right guard, Wilkin Formby got the start at right tackle. After last week, Formby got the start at right guard, and Michael Carroll got the start at right tackle. Very quickly, I think that was more of just a nod to Jaden Roberts being a senior and the fact that everything he has given the University of Alabama and how great of a person he is, he deserved to get the start today. He really did. But very quickly, you also saw Wilkin Formby kick inside the guard, and you saw Michael Carroll come in at right tackle. So despite the fact that there was some offensive line changes, now one of those was expected with Gino Vandermark starting at center in place of Parker Brailsford. The other one was somewhat of a surprise. Despite that, I still think next week you're going to see what you saw against Oklahoma, assuming Parker Brailsford's back and healthy. I think Wilkin probably is back at right guard. I think Michael Carroll is back at right tackle, and I think that's probably your best bet. Perry, appreciate the $5 super chat. I know we all hate this week, but what about OSU sitting their top two receivers because they are hurt? I don't want to hear it from the Big Ten. I agree. I don't disagree at all. And you couldn't do that. I mean, you really couldn't. Like Jeremy Bernard, I don't care if it's Arkansas. I don't care if it's Kentucky. I don't care if it's, some of these other bottom tier SEC teams. Parker Brailsford would have missed today, regardless. Obviously, Josh Cuevas would have missed today, regardless. But I have a sneaky suspicion that Jeremy Bernard would not have missed if they played anybody in the SEC. I think they knew. I mean, because you wouldn't have seen the rotation on the second drive of the game like they did, putting in backups immediately if they didn't just know. And it's like, why would we put Jeremy out there when he's a little banged up? He already said before the game, we're expecting him back next week. But in my opinion, the way I took it was he could play today, but just because of who we're playing, we're going to go ahead and rest him. Yes, the Big Ten has the opportunity to do that sort of thing against their bottom tier teams. But at the same time, I don't want to just assume that that's why. Like, I mean, they could be banged up and it could have just been interesting timing. And yeah, they're not super hurt. It's no like serious problem, but because of who they're playing, they're like, we'll go ahead and sit them. But it's exactly what Alabama did with Jeremy Bernard, but they're doing it against a conference opponent. I don't think I do think that's worth talking about, I guess is the point. Let's see. Cuevas is crucial to the offense. Completely agree. It is such, I was going back and watching him. He's got an NFL future, guys. Like, he is a good enough blocker. That's not really where he thrives, but I think he's made enough strides there where he gets by with it. And an NFL team's going to see that and say, we'll probably get some continued development on that front as the years go by. But him being such a reliable pass catcher and being a guy who in some ways not turns into a running back, but good contact balance, good vision, has the ability to make guys miss, has the athleticism, can do a little of the Najee Harris hurdle type of stuff. Like, he kind of looks like a running back in a sense, to a degree, with the football in his hands. That's a big loss for Alabama. Now, if this was the offseason or they had plenty of time to kind of adjust, what my suggestion would be, and if you had more of a solution at the running back position, if Xavier Crowell was on the roster and he was already ready to rock and roll, I might suggest Daniel Hill as more of like a versatile chess piece type of weapon. I've talked about that in the past, and I think that if Xavier Crowell comes in and immediately assumes a massive role, and maybe you got an AK Deer who really steps up next year, maybe Kevin Riley is still involved in that backfield as well. Daniel Hill is still going to get touches, but that's really where the Demetri Flowers, Oklahoma type of role could really start to evolve for him, where he's going to get those opportunities, especially in goal line situations, but you're also moving him around and doing some different things with him, where he can be a reliable presence, because I think he's got great hands, and I think he's not. And we talk about Josh Cuevas kind of being running back esque. Well, Daniel Hill was very running back esque with the football in his hands. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if in the future you saw some of those things from Daniel Hill. But right now they probably need Daniel Hill, the running back, more than anything else. I don't know why, but that's just something that I've been mulling over and thinking about. Mimi says, "Hey Clint, what do you think about Grubb being on the sideline?" I just don't know if it's permanent. I don't know if it's just something that they were testing out, maybe from a communicative standpoint, maybe him seeing. I have no idea. It was interesting to me for now until I see that's more of a permanent thing. I think it's that they just thought they had today's game in hand and that they were doing some different things. I don't know really what the purpose was. If anybody knows what the purpose, like, did they say it on the broadcast? Because I missed it if they did. I don't know why they did that necessarily, but it's a good question because it was definitely a massive change. Pritchett seems like he'll slot in nicely after Cuevas goes to the league. I do think that that's possible. I'm a huge fan of Mac Suter. I think he's going to end up being a really good player for Alabama in the future. Tough for tight ends to transition. In the immediate in 2026, I think you're going to see some Caleb Edwards as like the premier primary tight end, and I think he's going to turn into a really, really good player. Don't know if it'll be like out the gate necessarily next year, especially if Danny Lewis ends up coming back because he had to miss this season. But at the same time, I think Caleb Edwards is a massive part of the offense next year. I know the coaching staff is really high and really excited about him, but also Marshall Pritchett from that pass catching perspective. Give him another offseason and stuff, and I could totally see him really continuing to climb and getting involved, on that front. All right, that's probably going to do it. A little less than an hour, but there's a lot of games that really have a lot of meaning for Alabama coming up, things that people need to be paying attention to. Appreciate all you guys for hopping on here. Definitely go pull for USC at this point. Don't know that it matters. They're down by 2 touchdowns, and I'm not overly confident that USC is going to come back from that. But there's still a lot of other games that matter, and we still don't know for sure. We still don't know for sure what's going to happen with Alabama. They're on the border, and they got to handle business next week. That's where it's got to start. So we'll be talking a lot about Auburn, a lot about the playoff rankings and kind of where things are trending and how everybody fits in. Going to be some great conversations this week. And just a little spoiler, we got the Barn, and then we got Cover Crimson. The Barn is the Auburn version of this. We got a little competitive Iron Bowl stuff coming up, and I'm going to need you guys. I'm going to need you guys more than I've ever needed you before because I'm ultra competitive, and we got some ideas. We're going to be sharing that pretty soon, but you guys are going to have to step up for me, and we're going to carry Alabama across the finish line, at least when it comes to these 2 channels. And I'm looking forward to that very much. So also get on over to roback.com. Use the promo code Crimson20 to get 20% off your order. Got my Roback on right now. Absolutely love it. It doesn't change. It's kind of a little bit warmer outside. I'm ready for it to cool back down so I can really embrace and enjoy wearing this. But appreciate all you guys for tuning in. This has been good conversation, and we will talk to you guys soon.